My name is Olivia Brooks, and for almost 15 years, I believed I had the kind of friendship people spend a lifetime searching for. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. She wasn't just my best friend. She was my sister in every way except blood. We met on our first day of middle school when we were both 12 years old. I was the shy new girl. She was fearless. A group of older students had cornered me near my locker, making fun of my clothes and my accent. Before I could say a word, Sarah stepped between us. "Leave her alone," she said. The boys laughed. One of them pushed her shoulder. She pushed him back. The principal's office became our first shared memory. From that day on, we were inseparable. We celebrated every birthday together, graduated from high school together, went to different colleges but called each other almost every night. When my father passed away during my sophomore year, Sarah skipped her final exams just to sit beside me at the funeral. She held my hand while I cried. She whispered, "You'll never go through life alone." I believed her. I had no reason not to. Years later, life seemed to reward both of us. I became a successful financial consultant. Sarah opened a small marketing agency. Neither of us became millionaires overnight. We worked hard. Every success felt earned. Every setback made us stronger. At least, that's what I thought. By the time I turned 32, I had built a comfortable life. A beautiful apartment overlooking the river. A reliable car. Enough savings to finally think about opening my own investment firm. It had always been my dream. Sarah was the first person I told. She hugged me, so tightly I could barely breathe. "I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you," I replied. She smiled, but for just a second, something in her expression changed. It disappeared almost instantly. At the time, I ignored it. Looking back, it wasn't happiness. It was envy. People often ask how someone can betray their closest friend. The truth is, betrayal doesn't begin with one big decision. It begins with small emotions left unchecked. Jealousy, comparison, resentment, greed. By the time betrayal happens, the friendship has already been dying for years. Only one person notices, and unfortunately, it's never the victim. One Friday evening, Sarah invited me to dinner. She chose our favorite Italian restaurant, the same place where we had celebrated promotions, birthdays, and impossible dreams. She looked unusually nervous. "You okay?" I asked. "Just tired." We ordered pasta, talked about work, laughed about old memories. Everything felt normal. Until dessert arrived. Sarah suddenly leaned forward. "I need to ask you something. Anything." "My agency landed the biggest client we've ever had." "That's amazing." "It is. But I need temporary cash flow." I frowned. "How much?" She hesitated. $200,000. I almost dropped my fork. "Sarah, I know it's a lot. I'll pay every penny back. I just need 6 months." $200,000. That wasn't just money. It was nearly everything I had saved to start my own company. Seeing the hesitation on my face, Sarah quickly added, "If you say no, I'll understand." She looked embarrassed, ashamed, almost ready to cry. Then she whispered, "You're the only person I can ask." Those words broke my heart. How could I refuse the woman who had stood beside me through every chapter of my life? I didn't see a financial risk. I saw a friend asking for help. 3 days later, I transferred the money. No lawyers, no formal contract, just trust. The kind of trust that can only exist after 15 years of friendship. Over the next few weeks, Sarah became busier than ever. She answered fewer calls, canceled lunches, missed birthdays. Whenever I asked how things were going, she always gave the same answer. "Everything's under control." I believed her, because trust makes excuses sound reasonable. Exactly 4 months later, I received an email from my bank. At first, I assumed it was routine. Instead, the subject line read, "Urgent, multiple unusual transactions detected." My heart skipped a beat. I opened the message immediately. Several large withdrawals had been made from one of my business accounts. Thousands of dollars. Gone. I called the bank. There must be some mistake. The representative paused. "Ms. Brooks, the transactions were approved using your authorized digital signature." "That's impossible. There is one more thing." "What?" "The transfers were sent to—" She stopped. "As required by privacy regulations, I can't tell you over the phone." I grabbed my keys. I'll be there in 10 minutes. At the bank, the branch manager welcomed me into a private office. He placed a folder on the table. Inside were transaction records, authorization forms, security logs. Every document appeared legitimate, until I reached the final page, the destination account holder's name. I stared at it, read it again, and again. My vision blurred. The money hadn't gone to a stranger. It hadn't gone to a criminal organization. It had gone to only one person. Sarah Mitchell, my best friend. The woman I trusted more than anyone in the world. The woman who had promised, "You'll never go through life alone." At that moment, I realized she had been planning something far bigger than a simple loan. And my nightmare was only beginning. I couldn't breathe. I stared at Sarah's name on the bank statement as if my eyes were refusing to accept what they were seeing. Sarah Mitchell, recipient of 3 unauthorized transfers totaling $487,000. Almost everything I had spent 15 years building was gone. "This has to be a mistake," I whispered. The branch manager looked at me with sympathy. "I wish it were." He slid another document across the table. "The transfers were approved using your digital banking credentials." My credentials were never shared. "Were you ever asked to sign any financial documents recently?" I thought for a moment. Then something flashed through my mind. 2 months earlier, Sarah had asked me to sign a temporary investor verification form. She claimed one of her overseas clients needed proof that she had access to emergency funding. "It won't affect you," she had said. "It's just paperwork." Without reading every page, I signed it. The manager looked at me. "Do you still have a copy?" I slowly shook my head. "No." I left the bank feeling numb. My phone buzzed. Sarah calling. For a few seconds, I simply stared at the screen. Then I answered. "Hey," she said cheerfully. "How are you?" Her voice sounded so normal. It made me sick. "I'm okay. Are we still meeting for coffee tomorrow?" I closed my eyes. "Sure." "Great. See you at 10. She hung up, as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just stolen nearly $500,000 from me. That night, I barely slept. Every memory we shared replayed in my mind. Birthdays, vacations, late-night conversations. Every moment now felt poisoned by one question. How long had she been planning this? The next morning, I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. I chose a table by the window. When Sarah walked in, she smiled exactly the way she always had. She hugged me. "Good morning." I forced myself to smile. She sat down, ordered her favorite cappuccino, started talking about work. For 20 minutes, I let her speak. Then I quietly slid the bank statement across the table. Her smile disappeared. She looked at the paper, then at me. Neither of us spoke. Finally, she sighed. "I was wondering when you'd find out." Those words shattered something inside me. Not denial, not confusion, acceptance. She already knew. "Why?" I asked. She looked out the window. "You wouldn't understand. Try me. You've always had everything." I laughed bitterly. "Everything. My father died when I was 19. I worked 2 jobs through college. I built my business from nothing. What exactly did I have that you didn't?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Luck." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Luck. You always found opportunities. People trusted you. Clients loved you. You bought your apartment. You traveled. You had savings. And I..." She looked down. "I was drowning. You could have asked me for help." "I did. I gave you $200,000. She slowly nodded. "And once I realized how easy it was, I wanted more." Silence. Heavy. Painful. Honest. For the first time in 15 years, I saw the real Sarah. Not my best friend. Not my sister. A woman consumed by envy. "I never planned to hurt you," she whispered. "I only wanted enough money to survive. So why didn't you stop?" She looked at her untouched coffee. "Because after the first lie, the second one became easier." Just then, a man walked into the cafe. Expensive suit, luxury watch, confident smile. He walked straight to our table. "Sarah." She looked startled. "What are you doing here?" He ignored her and turned to me. "You must be Olivia. Who are you?" He extended his hand. "My name is Victor Hayes. I'm Sarah's business partner." I didn't shake his hand. "What do you want?" He smiled. I think it's time someone told you the truth. Sarah suddenly stood up. No! Victor looked at her calmly. She deserves to know. Sarah's face turned pale. Please! Victor reached into his briefcase. He placed a thick envelope on the table. Then he looked directly at me and said, Sarah didn't steal your money because she was desperate. He paused. She stole it because someone paid her to become your friend. The cafe fell silent. I looked at Sarah. She couldn't even meet my eyes. Everything I believed about our 15-year friendship collapsed in a single sentence. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too quiet. I couldn't hear the music anymore. I couldn't hear the conversations around us. All I could hear were Victor's words echoing in my mind. Someone paid her to become your friend. I slowly turned toward Sarah. She was crying, but she still couldn't look me in the eyes. I whispered, Tell me he's lying. Silence. Sarah, tell me. Her lips trembled. Finally, she whispered the one word I was praying I would never hear. No. I felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath me. No. She closed her eyes. He's telling the truth. 15 years. 15 birthdays. 15 Christmases. 15 years of shared secrets. Every memory flashed before my eyes. None of it was real. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. It became real. I laughed bitterly. That's not an answer. She shook her head. When I first met you, I had a job to do. Victor calmly took a seat. Unlike Sarah, he looked completely relaxed. He poured himself a glass of water and smiled. I suppose I should explain. I stared at him. You'd better. Victor opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, old documents, bank records, school reports. Then he slid an old photograph across the table. It showed me, 12 years old, standing outside my middle school on my very first day. Across the street, someone was watching me, a teenage girl. Sarah, my heart stopped. The photo had been taken before we ever met. This picture, I whispered. Who took it? Victor answered without hesitation. Our company. What company? He smiled. We don't really have a name. We solve expensive problems. I frowned. I don't understand. You will. Victor folded his hands. When your grandfather died, he left something very valuable behind. My grandfather? I barely remembered him. He had died when I was only 11. He wasn't just a farmer. Victor smiled. No. He owned land. Very valuable land. I frowned. He left it to your father. Victor nodded. And after your father's death, it legally became yours. My stomach tightened. So. He leaned forward. That land is worth over $100 million. I stared at him. That's impossible. I've never owned land. Victor smiled again. That's because you don't know you own it. He placed another document on the table. It contained legal records, maps, property deeds. My name appeared at the bottom. Everything looked official. Everything looked real. Sarah finally spoke. They hired me when I was 12. I looked at her in disbelief. What? My mother owed dangerous people a lot of money. They offered to erase her debt. In exchange, I had to become your friend. My heart shattered. You were a child. So was I. She nodded. I know. Victor continued. For years, your friendship gave us access to your life, your habits, your family, your finances. When you became successful, our timetable changed. I looked at Sarah. The loan. Victor answered. That wasn't about money. It was a loyalty test. When I trusted Sarah with $200,000, they knew I would trust her with anything. That was exactly what they needed. I pushed my chair back. I don't believe any of this. Victor calmly smiled. You don't have to. He reached into his briefcase one last time. Then, he placed a small velvet box on the table. What is that? Open it. Inside was my late father's gold signet ring. The ring that had disappeared from our house the night after his funeral. The ring we never found. My hands began shaking. How did you get this? Victor looked directly into my eyes. We've been watching your family, long before you were born. A cold wave of fear rushed through me. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just stolen money. This had started years before I ever met Sarah. And suddenly, I realized I wasn't the victim of one friend's greed. I was the center of a plan that had been unfolding for almost 2 decades. As I stared at the ring, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I answered. A calm, unfamiliar voice said only one sentence. "Don't trust Victor. He's using both of you." The call disconnected. I looked up. Victor's confident smile had disappeared. For the first time, he looked nervous, and I realized someone even more powerful had just entered the game. The cafe fell silent. My phone was still in my hand. The unknown caller had said only one sentence. "Don't trust Victor. He's using both of you." Then the line went dead. I looked up. Victor's confident smile had vanished. For the first time since he sat down, he looked uncomfortable. "Who was that?" I asked. "I have no idea," he replied. He answered too quickly. Sarah noticed it too. She narrowed her eyes. "Victor." "What?" "You look scared." Victor forced a laugh. "I don't scare easily." But I had already seen the truth in his face. Someone had just disrupted his plan. I stood up. "This conversation is over." Victor reached for my arm. "Olivia, if you walk away now, you'll never learn the truth." I pulled my arm back. "I've heard enough lies for one lifetime." I turned toward Sarah. "I trusted you with my life." Tears streamed down her face. "I know." "No, you don't." Without another word, I walked out of the cafe. The rain had started. I sat in my car for several minutes, unable to start the engine. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from the same unknown number. It contained only an address. No name. No explanation. Just one sentence. "Come alone if you want the truth." I should have ignored it. Every instinct told me it was dangerous. But after everything I had learned, I couldn't walk away. An hour later, I arrived at an old public library on the edge of town. It had been closed for years. Broken windows. Overgrown grass. A place everyone had forgotten. I stepped inside. Dust covered every shelf. The building was completely silent. Then I heard a voice. "You're right on time." An elderly man stepped out from the shadows. He wore a dark gray coat and carried a leather briefcase. He smiled kindly. "My name is Henry Collins. Did you call me?" "Yes." "Who are you?" He took a deep breath. "I was your father's lawyer." My heart stopped. "My father never mentioned you." "He couldn't." "Why not?" "Because someone was listening." Henry looked around before lowering his voice. "Your father spent the last years of his life trying to protect you. From Victor." Henry slowly nodded. "And from the people behind him." He opened his briefcase. Inside were faded legal files, photographs, newspaper clippings, and one sealed envelope. Across the front, in my father's handwriting, were the words, "For Olivia. Open only if they find you." My hands began to shake. "This is impossible." Henry smiled sadly. "Your father knew this day would come." Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, it means the people searching for our family's land have finally reached you. You must trust very carefully. Some enemies pretend to be friends, and some friends are forced to become enemies." I looked up. "What does that mean?" Henry sighed. "It means Sarah may not be the villain you think she is." I stared at him. "She stole nearly $500,000 from me." "I know. Then how can you defend her?" "I'm not defending her. I'm explaining her." Henry pulled another document from the file. It was an old hospital report. The patient's name read, Emily Mitchell, Sarah's mother. Diagnosis, advanced kidney failure. Sarah's mother became sick when Sarah was 13, Henry explained. The treatment was expensive. Her family couldn't afford it. So Victor helped. Henry nodded. Not out of kindness. Out of control. They paid the medical bills. In return, they owned Sarah. Everything suddenly became more complicated. Had Sarah betrayed me? Yes, without question. But had she chosen that path freely? I wasn't so sure anymore. Henry handed me one final photograph. It showed my father, standing beside Sarah. She looked about 14 years old. Both of them were smiling. On the back of the photo, my father had written, "She promised she'd protect you, no matter the cost." I felt my heart race. Protect me? That made no sense. Sarah had stolen my money, lied to me, manipulated me. Why would my father trust her? Before Henry could answer, the sound of tires screeching echoed outside. 3 black SUVs stopped in front of the library. Henry's face turned pale. They found us. Men in dark suits rushed toward the entrance. Henry grabbed my arm. There's a back exit. As we ran between the old bookshelves, he looked at me and shouted, Your money was never their real target. They've always wanted the land, and only you know where the final ownership document is. I froze. I don't know where it is. Henry looked straight into my eyes. You do. You just don't remember. Behind us, the library doors exploded open. The hunt had officially begun. The old library echoed with crashing footsteps. Men in black suits spread through the building. Search every room. Don't let them escape. Henry grabbed my wrist. This way. We ran through narrow aisles of dusty books until we reached an old wooden door hidden behind a broken bookshelf. He pushed it open. A narrow staircase led into the basement. The heavy door closed just as voices reached the hallway above us. For a few seconds, everything went silent. Only our breathing filled the darkness. Henry leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. They're getting closer. Who are these people? The same organization Victor works for. What do they want from me? You. No. They want what belongs to you. He looked directly into my eyes. The land is only part of it. What else is there? Henry hesitated. Your grandfather didn't leave behind only property. He left behind proof. Proof of what? Proof that some of the most powerful people in the country built their fortunes through fraud. My heart pounded. You're saying my grandfather exposed them? He was preparing to. But before he could, he died. I stared at Henry in disbelief. My grandfather died of a stroke. Henry slowly shook his head. That's what everyone was told. He opened his briefcase again. Inside was a faded newspaper clipping. The headline read, Local landowner dies suddenly at 67. Henry pointed to a small handwritten note on the back. It wasn't printed. It was my father's handwriting. He didn't die naturally. A chill ran down my spine. After your grandfather's death, Henry continued, your father found a hidden safe. What was inside? Property deeds, financial records, and one notebook. What notebook? Henry looked toward the ceiling, listening for footsteps. Then he whispered. The notebook listed every person involved in stealing thousands of acres of land over the last 30 years. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't about my savings anymore. This wasn't even about betrayal. It was about corruption worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed upstairs. They're searching the basement, Henry whispered. We have to move. We hurried through a narrow tunnel connecting the basement to an abandoned maintenance corridor. As we walked, I noticed old drawings carved into the concrete walls. Then one symbol caught my attention. A small oak tree. My heart skipped a beat. I know this. Henry stopped. You do. My father used to draw this symbol in my storybooks. Henry smiled. I was hoping you'd remember. The oak tree wasn't just a drawing. It was a map. My father had hidden clues inside bedtime stories. Stories I hadn't read in nearly 20 years. He hadn't been entertaining me. He'd been training me. Preparing me, in case this day ever came. My phone suddenly vibrated. Sarah calling. I hesitated. Henry nodded. Answer it. I pressed the speaker button. Olivia. Sarah was crying. You have to listen to me. I'm listening. They know you're with Henry. I froze. How do you know that? Because Victor is furious. He just found out you escaped. I glanced at Henry. He quietly mouthed, Keep talking. Sarah took a shaky breath. Olivia, I never wanted any of this. I know that's hard to believe. You stole almost $500,000. I know. You lied to me for 15 years. I know. So why should I trust you now? Silence. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. Because Victor murdered your father. The world seemed to stop. No. He did. I saw it. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as her voice cracked. I was 16. I was in the car. I heard everything. I've carried that secret every single day. I couldn't speak. My father. Murdered? Before I could ask another question, the phone call suddenly disconnected. A second later, a video message appeared from Sarah. It lasted only 12 seconds. She looked terrified, standing in what looked like a warehouse. Behind her, 2 men grabbed her arms. She looked directly into the camera and shouted, Don't let them find the red ledger. The screen went black. Henry's face turned pale. The red ledger? What is it? He looked at me with fear in his eyes. It's the notebook your grandfather hid, the one that can destroy everyone. And if Victor gets it first, he won't just take your inheritance. He'll erase every person who knows it ever existed. At that moment, I realized the betrayal had never been about money. The money was only bait. The real war was over a single red notebook hidden somewhere in my forgotten childhood. For several seconds, neither Henry nor I spoke. The video replayed in my mind. Sarah's frightened face, the men dragging her away, and her final words, "Don't let them find the red ledger." I looked at Henry. What exactly is the red ledger? He took a slow breath. It isn't just a notebook. It's evidence. Evidence that can destroy some of the richest and most powerful people in the country. I swallowed hard. So my grandfather collected proof against them? Henry nodded. For over 20 years, he documented illegal land deals, fake companies, bribery, and every person involved. If the ledger becomes public, hundreds of people could go to prison. But why didn't my father hand it over to the police? Henry smiled sadly. He tried. He trusted the wrong people. What happened? The same night he arranged to meet investigators, someone leaked the information. The meeting became an ambush. My chest tightened. My father knew they were coming. Henry nodded. He escaped. But from that day on, he knew your family would never be safe. We finally reached the end of the underground tunnel. An old iron door opened into a deserted parking garage. Rain poured outside. Henry unlocked an old pickup truck. We have to keep moving. Where are we going? Your childhood home. I stared at him. It burned down years ago. He smiled. Only the house. Not everything underneath it. 45 minutes later, we arrived at the abandoned property. Nature had reclaimed most of the land. Tall grass covered the yard. The remains of the old farmhouse stood like a skeleton against the dark sky. The sight brought back memories. I could almost hear my father laughing. I could almost smell my mother's apple pie. For a moment, I forgot everything. Then Henry placed a hand on my shoulder. Your father hid clues everywhere. Think. What did he always tell you when you were little? I closed my eyes. Then I remembered. Every birthday, every bedtime story, he ended with the same sentence. The strongest oak protects its roots. My eyes opened. The oak tree. In the middle of the old yard stood a massive oak tree. It had survived the fire. It had survived storms. It had survived time itself. I walked toward it. The trunk was enormous. Its bark was scarred with age. Then I noticed something carved into it. A tiny symbol. The exact same symbol I had seen in the tunnel. I touched it gently. There was a small metal key hidden inside the hollow bark. Henry smiled. You remembered. The key opened a rusted metal hatch buried beneath the tree. Together, we pulled it open. A narrow staircase disappeared into darkness. Dust filled the air. It looked untouched for decades. We climbed down carefully. At the bottom was a tiny underground room. Old shelves lined the walls. A wooden desk stood in the center. On top of it sat a single red leather notebook. The red ledger. I slowly picked it up. It felt heavier than I expected. As I opened the first page, my heart nearly stopped. The first name written inside wasn't Victor's. It wasn't a politician. It wasn't a businessman. It was Sarah Mitchell. Next to her name was a handwritten note from my father. She's not the enemy. Protect her if you can. I looked at Henry in shock. Why would he write this? Henry lowered his eyes. Because your father knew the truth. What truth? Sarah wasn't sent to destroy you. She was planted close to you, so she could protect you from the people who wanted you dead. Everything I believed collapsed. Had Sarah lied to me? Yes. Had she stolen my money? Yes. But now, nothing was as simple as it seemed. Suddenly, headlights flooded the entrance above us. Several vehicles had arrived. Voices echoed from outside. They're here! Henry looked toward the staircase. They found us. I quickly grabbed the red ledger. As we turned to leave, a slow clap echoed through the underground chamber. Someone stepped out of the shadows. Perfect suit. Calm smile. Victor. He looked directly at me and said, Thank you, Olivia. You've just led me to the one thing I've been searching for 20 years. He wasn't alone. Behind him stood nearly a dozen armed men. And for the first time, I realized we had walked straight into his trap. Victor's slow applause echoed through the underground chamber. The sound bounced off the stone walls like a warning. I tightened my grip on the red ledger. He smiled. You always were smarter than I expected, Olivia. You used me. Victor shrugged. I simply waited. For what? For you to remember. Behind him, 12 armed men spread out, blocking every exit. Henry quietly stepped in front of me. Run when I tell you. There's nowhere to run. Victor laughed. He's right. This game is over. Victor extended his hand. Give me the ledger. I shook my head. No. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to history. He smiled. History is written by whoever survives. Before anyone could move, a gunshot echoed through the chamber. Everyone froze. One of Victor's guards collapsed to the ground. A second shot shattered another guard's flashlight. The underground room went dark. Someone shouted, "Get down!" A figure emerged from the shadows. Black jacket, baseball cap, face covered by a scarf. The stranger held a pistol with steady hands. Olivia! The voice was unmistakable. Sarah! She pulled off the scarf. Her face was bruised. Her lip was bleeding. But she was alive. Victor's smile disappeared. I knew you'd escape. Sarah pointed the gun directly at him. You taught me well, but not well enough. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Sarah! She looked at me. I'm sorry. For everything. I'll explain later. Victor laughed. Really? You think she'll forgive you? Sarah never looked away from him. I don't expect forgiveness. I only want one chance to make things right. Victor slowly clapped again. Touching. Very touching. Then he looked at me. Do you know why Sarah was chosen? I stayed silent. Because she was brilliant. Top of every class. Perfect memory. Fearless. We recruited her when she was 13. Sarah interrupted him. No. You blackmailed me. Victor ignored her. You became exactly what we needed. The perfect spy. He smiled proudly. Until she made one mistake. I frowned. What mistake? Victor looked straight at Sarah. You fell in love with your best friend. The room became silent. Sarah lowered her head. I wasn't supposed to care. She whispered. But somewhere between the lies, you became my real family. Tears filled her eyes. The money I stole was never for me. I stared at her. Then where did it go? Sarah slowly reached into her jacket and pulled out a flash drive. I transferred almost all of it into secret accounts. Victor laughed. You expect her to believe that? Sarah ignored him. I knew they would eventually come after you. So I moved the money where they couldn't reach it. You stole it. To keep it away from them. I couldn't speak. Every emotion inside me collided at once. Anger. Confusion. Relief. Heartbreak. Henry stepped forward. I verified it. Every dollar. It's still there. Victor's face hardened. You little traitor. He raised his pistol. But before he could fire, Sarah pushed me to the ground. A loud shot echoed through the chamber. Sarah gasped. A dark stain spread across her shoulder. No! I screamed. She smiled weakly. I'm okay. She wasn't. Blood ran down her arm. Victor's men rushed forward. The chamber erupted into chaos. Flashlights swung wildly. More gunshots echoed. Henry grabbed my arm. We have to go. I can't leave Sarah. You'll both die. Just as Victor reached for the red ledger, a deafening voice thundered through the tunnels. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. Red and blue lights flooded the underground chamber. Dozens of armed federal officers stormed the room from every entrance. Victor looked around in disbelief. No! This isn't possible. Henry smiled. It is. I called them an hour ago. Victor tried to run, but one of the agents tackled him to the ground. The red ledger slid across the floor, stopping right at my feet. I picked it up. For the first time in years, it finally felt safe. But then, an FBI agent walked toward me, holding a sealed envelope. Olivia Brooks? Yes. This was found in your father's private safe. Across the front, in my father's handwriting, were the words, "Open only after Victor is caught." I stared at the envelope. If my father had written this, then he had planned for this moment all along. And whatever was inside would reveal the final truth behind everything. The underground chamber had finally fallen silent. Victor was on his knees, his hands cuffed behind his back. Federal agents searched every corner of the hidden bunker. The red ledger was now sealed inside an evidence bag. Sarah was lying on a stretcher while paramedics treated the gunshot wound in her shoulder. She was alive. Barely. An FBI agent walked over and handed me the envelope. "Your father wanted you to have this." I stared at his handwriting. The same neat handwriting I had seen on birthday cards, Christmas gifts, and the notes he used to leave in my lunchbox. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside was a letter. The first line made my eyes fill with tears. "My dearest Olivia, if you are reading this, then Victor has finally been caught. If that happened, it means you were brave enough to finish what our family started." A tear rolled down my cheek. I continued reading. "There is something I never told you. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted you to have a normal childhood." I took a deep breath and read the next page. "Sarah was never your enemy." My hands froze. Henry quietly nodded. He already knew. The letter continued. "When Sarah's mother became seriously ill, Victor's organization offered to pay for her treatment. In return, they forced Sarah to stay close to you and report everything she learned. I discovered their plan before it began." I frowned. "Then why did he allow it?" The answer came on the next page. "I made a different deal." My heart pounded. I secretly met Sarah before her first day of school. She was frightened. She was only 12 years old. She didn't want to spy on you. She only wanted to save her mother. I looked toward Sarah. She was awake now, watching me from across the room. Tears rolled down her face. The letter continued. "I asked Sarah to do something impossible. Pretend to work for Victor, but secretly protect my daughter instead." The room felt completely still. All those years, Sarah had been living two lives, one for Victor, one for my father. Then I remembered every strange coincidence. Every time Sarah had convinced me not to attend a meeting, every business deal she had warned me against, every relationship she told me to avoid. Back then, I thought she was being overprotective. Now, I realized she had been quietly saving my life. Again, and again, and again. But one question still haunted me. If Sarah was protecting me, why steal my money? The answer came on the final page. "If Victor ever believes you are close to discovering the red ledger, Sarah will have only one choice. She must steal your money before Victor does. Hide it somewhere he can never reach. You will hate her for it, but you will still be alive." My vision blurred. Everything suddenly made sense. The fake loan, the disappearing money, the betrayal. It had all been part of a desperate attempt to keep Victor from gaining control of my finances. Sarah hadn't stolen my future. She had protected it. I slowly walked toward her hospital stretcher. She looked away. "I don't expect you to forgive me." I knelt beside her. "You should have told me." I couldn't. They were always watching. "I know." She closed her eyes. "I missed birthdays. I lied. I betrayed your trust. I know. I deserve prison." I shook my head. "No. You deserve peace." For the first time in 15 years, I hugged my best friend. We both cried. Not because everything was fixed, but because the truth had finally replaced the lies. Just then, an FBI agent approached us. "Ms. Brooks, there's one more problem." "What now?" He handed me a tablet. A news report was playing. Breaking news. Victor Hayes escapes during prison transport. I stared at the screen. The reporter continued. Authorities believe he had help from someone inside the agency. Victor had escaped, which meant the nightmare wasn't over yet. As the camera zoomed in on the abandoned prison transport vehicle, one message was spray-painted across its side in red letters. "This isn't over, Olivia." I felt a chill run down my spine. Victor was free, and he was coming back for the red ledger. The television kept repeating the same breaking news. Victor Hayes has escaped during federal transport. Every station carried the story. Authorities had found the transport vehicle abandoned on a deserted highway. 3 federal officers were injured. 2 security vehicles had disappeared. No one knew where Victor had gone. I stared at the screen. After everything we had been through, he was free again. The FBI immediately moved Sarah and me to a secure safe house outside the city. The location was confidential. Armed agents guarded every entrance. Henry sat across from me, quietly reading through copies of the red ledger. For hours, no one spoke. Finally, Agent Rebecca Collins entered the room. "We have a problem." I looked up. What happened? The ledger is incomplete. Henry frowned. Impossible. She opened the evidence file. The last 20 pages are missing. The room fell silent. What? Someone removed them years ago. Henry slowly removed his glasses. I know what those pages contained. Everyone looked at him. They listed every senior member of Victor's organization. And they also identified the man who financed everything. Agent Collins leaned forward. Who? Henry looked directly at me. I never saw his name. But your father did. My heart sank. So we're still missing the most important evidence. Henry nodded. Without those pages, Victor can rebuild everything. That evening, Sarah asked to speak with me alone. She still wore a bandage across her shoulder. She looked exhausted. I'm sorry. I smiled sadly. You've said that 100 times. It still isn't enough. No, it isn't. She nodded. I understand. For several minutes, we sat in silence. Then she reached into her pocket. I never told anyone about this. She placed a tiny silver key in my hand. What is it? Victor gave it to me 12 years ago. He told me never to open the box it belonged to. And you listen. She smiled weakly. I was too afraid. The next morning, forensic investigators traced the key. It belonged to a private safety deposit box, registered under a fake company. The bank had been closed for nearly 15 years. Agent Collins obtained an emergency court order. Within hours, we stood inside the bank's underground vault. The manager unlocked the box. Inside, there was only one item. A black leather notebook. Not the red ledger. Something else. Across the front were embossed gold letters. Personal journal, Richard Hayes. Who's Richard Hayes? I asked. Henry's face turned white. Victor's father. Inside the journal were handwritten entries dating back 30 years. Business meetings. Secret payments. Names. Photographs. And on the very last page, a single sentence. The real leader must never be known. Beneath it, a photograph. I picked it up. The man standing beside Victor wasn't a politician. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a criminal I recognized. My hands began to shake. Agent Collins whispered, I know him. Who is he? She swallowed hard. The director of the Federal Anti-Corruption Bureau. The room froze. The very man responsible for investigating corruption had secretly been leading it. Everything suddenly made sense. Every failed investigation. Every leaked operation. Every witness who disappeared. Someone inside the government had protected Victor all along. Before anyone could react, the vault lights suddenly went out. Emergency alarms echoed through the building. Agent Collins reached for her radio. No signal. Then, a familiar voice came through the darkness. Calm, confident, almost amused. Good evening, Olivia. Victor stepped out of the shadows. He wasn't alone. Several armed men surrounded the vault entrance. He smiled. I've been looking for that journal. He slowly raised his pistol. This time, there won't be anyone left to save you. I looked at Sarah. She looked at me. Neither of us needed to speak. Whatever happened next, we would face it together. Victor's voice echoed through the dark vault. This time, there won't be anyone left to save you. His armed men blocked every exit. The emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows across the room. I tightened my grip on Richard Hayes' journal. This wasn't just a notebook anymore. It was the final piece of evidence that could destroy an empire built on lies. Victor took another step forward. Give me the journal, Olivia. I looked him straight in the eyes. No. He smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Without warning, Victor raised his pistol. Before he could pull the trigger, Sarah stepped in front of me. Bang! The shot echoed through the vault. Sarah fell to one knee, clutching her injured shoulder. It wasn't a fatal wound. The bullet had grazed the same shoulder that had already been bandaged. Sarah! I screamed. She looked up at me and whispered, Run! But this time, I refused. For 15 years, Sarah had protected me. Now it was my turn to protect her. Agent Rebecca Collins quickly reached the emergency alarm panel hidden behind a concrete pillar. She slammed her hand against the red emergency switch. A deafening security alarm filled the building. Heavy steel security doors began closing automatically. Victor realized what was happening. No! His men rushed toward the exit. But it was too late. The vault sealed itself shut. Everyone inside was trapped, including Victor. Victor turned toward me with fury. "You think you've won?" I calmly held up Richard Hayes' journal. "No. I think you've lost." I opened the final page. Tucked inside the back cover was something no one had noticed before. A tiny memory card. Henry's eyes widened. "My God! My father hid it there!" An FBI technician immediately inserted the card into a secure evidence laptop. The screen filled with encrypted files, video recordings, bank transfers, secret contracts, audio conversations, and one final recording. Victor's father appeared on the screen. He looked directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, then my son has failed." The room fell silent. The recording continued. "I created this organization, but Victor turned it into something far worse. He betrayed everyone, even me." Then he revealed the names of every corrupt official involved. At the top of the list, the director of the Federal Anti-Corruption Bureau. Every secret, every bribe, every illegal land deal. Everything was finally exposed. Victor's face turned pale. "It's over," Agent Collins said quietly. Minutes later, the reinforced vault doors opened. This time, dozens of FBI agents and federal marshals stormed inside. Victor tried to escape. He didn't make it 3 steps before he was tackled to the ground. As they placed handcuffs on him, he looked at me with hatred. "You ruined my life." I looked back calmly. "No, Victor. You ruined your own." For the first time, he had nothing left to say. 6 months later, the trial became one of the biggest corruption cases in the country's history. The Red Ledger, Richard Hayes' journal, and the hidden memory card exposed decades of fraud, bribery, money laundering, and stolen land. More than 60 people were arrested. Millions of dollars in stolen assets were recovered and returned to their rightful owners. Victor Hayes was convicted on multiple federal charges and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The corrupt government official was removed from office and later convicted as well. Justice had finally caught up with them. Sarah's new beginning. Sarah recovered completely after months of rehabilitation. Although she faced legal questions about her role, the court recognized that she had acted under years of coercion and had ultimately risked her life to expose the organization. She received probation instead of prison. One sunny afternoon, we met at the same little cafe where everything had fallen apart. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Sarah smiled. "I never thought we'd sit here again." I smiled back. "Neither did I." She looked down. "Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about 15 years of friendship, the lies, the pain, the sacrifices. Then I answered honestly, "I can't erase the past, but I don't want to lose the person who fought to save my future." Tears filled her eyes. She reached across the table. This time, I took her hand, not because everything had been forgotten, but because the truth had finally replaced the lies. A new life. I used the money that had been recovered to open the investment firm I had dreamed about for years. Its name was Oak Roots Capital, a tribute to my grandfather, my father, and the old oak tree that had protected our family's greatest secret. Henry became one of my closest advisors. Agent Collins remained a trusted friend. As for Sarah, she started a nonprofit organization that helped families trapped by financial exploitation and coercion. She spent the rest of her life making sure no child would ever be forced to choose between protecting their family and betraying a friend. Sometimes people ask me, "What was the greatest treasure your grandfather left behind?" It wasn't the land. It wasn't the money. It wasn't even the Red Ledger. It was the lesson hidden inside all of it. Money can buy loyalty for a moment, but truth, courage, and real friendship are priceless. And that's the one thing Victor Hayes could never steal. The end.